appointee from the Roman Empire was afraid that he was so popular among the people they would do anything that he would want, and therefore he thought he should put him to death as a preventive execution, not because there was a Salome who danced a sexy dance. That's not in Josephus. The sexy dance deal and the head on the platter comes from an attempt to present Roman officials in a neutral way. That he didn't want to do this. He was forced to do it by some weakness or something. And Pilate's a nice guy. His wife said, "Don't kill this righteous man." Pilate was the most violent, as I told you, governor that there ever was in Palestine, and he was removed from power by the complaints over his violence. He didn't scruple to shed blood at all. So, you know, the Pontius Pilate of the Gospels is a whitewashed Pilate. He wipes his hands of it. No, he didn't wipe his hands of anything. How do I know? Because I know what Pontius Pilate was. And I know what he did to insurrectionists. And so on. Anyway, forget that. The point being that you talk to people, and so then they say, yeah, okay, well, forget the Jesus matter. That's open. That's a matter of, well, we'll just have to argue about some other time. But the John the Baptist, so then what? There's one person that you want to say they may have been involved in, and they may have been establishment Herodian, accommodating Jews who were involved with the Roman authorities who wanted to get rid of troublemakers. There may have been people like that, but that's not the popular mass by any means, shape, or form. We're going to blame the Jews for something the Herodian appointees may have done. The Herodian appointees who the Jews resisted for 200 years, and so on. Anyway, so you tell people this and they're like, oh, really? So this is what I mean about slogans being internalized. People accept those slogans. So the Jews accepted these things too. They just said, oh, well, their rabbis didn't tell them any different, or couldn't tell them any different. They weren't studying these things carefully. They weren't allowed to anyway. All the Talmudic references were edited out. In any case, their books were inspected by the authorities over and show the censorship of their books over a 1,000-year period. They just forgot. And again, the scrolls have been tremendous to awaken our interest again in all these things. So a lot of this stuff became internalized. So by the time of the Middle Ages, and we are in a dark age period, it's hard to tell what was going on there. The only profession that the Jews were really functioning in a widespread way was money lending, because of the ban on usury in the Scripture. That was all, and of course anyone who's money lending is hated in any case. And then because they were seen to have surrendered to the authorities and serfs of the royal treasury, they didn't fit into the feudal medieval system. They could then be taxed by the royal authorities to get the money back, or a portion of the money back, that they were making in these, you know, very minor, if you like, monetary operations. And they had to pay for the privilege of residence in countries. There was a poll tax and so on that the rabbinic authorities, that's why Jews have always deferred to rich people, because the rich people in their community always paid the tax for all the others. And so it went. You survived in a country. I think that book, Ivanhoe, about England, shows a very good picture by Sir Walter Scott. You've seen the movie with Elizabeth Taylor where, you know, this Isaac the Jew has to finance the knight's armor and so on and so forth, and you know, they can't do it. And I think that is actually a pretty good picture. Well, I'll quit in a minute, just to make a long story short so we can come up closer to the modern period. They started expelling Jews from Western European countries. Why did they expel Jews from Western European countries? Well, somewhere in the early Renaissance, or somewhere around the 1300s period, what are known as the Lombards in Italy got special papal dispensation to become involved in money lending and banking. So this took away any role that the Jews had in the countries where they were living at that time in the West. So once the Lombards, when they saw that this was a very lucrative thing to be involved in, got the papal dispensation, and it may have been involved with the Medici popes, I don't know how this all happened, and that's another situation entirely. If you go to Western Europe, you see there's a Lombard street in every big city in Western Europe, in London, and in Brussels and so on. This is where the Italian bankers set up shop. So there was no longer any need for Jewish banking or money, whatever you want to call it. So slowly the Jews were expelled from England, from France, from Germany, from Austria, from Hungary, and so on. And in Italy they were protected by the popes for various reasons, and pushed further east. And that's where the word Yiddish language came from. Why do Jews in Russia and Poland speak a German language? Because as these expulsions pushed them eastwards, on the fringes of the Western Europe flourishing areas, what you would call the border areas, or the Netherlands, the areas where were sort of outside the really governing powers of Europe, where things weren't so rigidly formalized that they could survive, they brought their language with them, and the language was Low German of the early Middle Ages. And that's what Yiddish is. If you know Yiddish, you know German. But it's a very vulgar, low form of medieval German mixed with Hebraicisms and written in Hebrew letters. So, and that spread all across Poland, Russia, and all these other places. Ukraine, Romania, Hungary, wherever the Jews were, they spoke Yiddish. And that is a German language. So slowly, as their banking professions wore thin, and those kinds of things, the last expulsion was in Spain. What year did that occur? 1492, the year that Columbus left for America, and people think the Jews were involved in the financing of that particular expedition because they had to leave. The Muslims were expelled from Spain too at the same time, but it was when Spain was reunified in 1490, I'll pick up there next time, that they were expelled. So in any event, slowly Western Europe rid itself of its Jews. Now we're only going to get a flow back into Western Europe in the Mendelssohn period. And that's going to come as the emancipation process develops, as the Napoleonic Wars develop, and so on. I'm getting ahead of myself. What I want you to do and read for next time, so that we are all on the same wavelength here, is if you can get a hold of this book or borrow each other's books or something like that. I'm going to read it fast a bit, but you can read Christian Dome, The Civil Status of the Jews, and the Emancipation of the French Jews. I mean, next time we may not cover all this. And Solomon Maimon, Tortured Drifting, which is someone caught in the middle. And then this other book, as I told you, where's the book here? Read the, and I said, if some of you want to lend it to each other, or wait till I get this stuff in, or borrow it from each other, or whatever. Not this one. Where's the other book that we so blithely dispensed with here? What I've been covering here is Terror and Libel, 19, the medieval Jewish community, and the ghetto. The first 3 chapters of this book from page, well, this prelude is worth reading too, so from about page 17 to 34. That is worth reading. And as I said, I will probably have a couple of more copies of this and a couple of more copies of the modern Jewish history next time. Depending on what they send me and what they, these people never send what they say they're going to send you. And that's it. So we'll see you next time. And when I'm going to read Mendelssohn? Well, we'll read them when we think it's the right time.
Jen, did anybody tell you about